Welcome to Talk About the Hill Country. Today on Talk About the Hill Country, we're speaking with the Executive Director of Feeding Texas. Could you tell us your name and title?
Sure. I'm Celia Cole, and I'm the CEO of Feeding Texas, the State Association of Food Banks.
Thank you so much for being here today. For our listeners, let's start at the very basics. How do experts define food insecurity, and what's the difference between that and simply being hungry?
Sure. Well, food insecurity basically is defined as not having enough resources to access food consistently in a dignified way. So it's basically about having a lack of financial resources to afford food. And we often say that hunger isn't a food problem, it's a money problem. Hunger is sort of the extreme version of food insecurity, so it sort of can occur along a continuum from a family that may just be simply worried about their ability to afford food in any given month, to a family that is cutting back on meals, buying less nutritious food, and going without.
So, what does Feeding Texas do to help alleviate food insecurity?
Feeding Texas supports a network of 20 food banks. They're all regional. They each serve a specific geographic area of the state, but collectively they serve all 254 counties. And they provide food and other resources to food insecure Texas, a network of about 4,000 local partners, most of them faith-based agencies. And we serve about 5 million Texans every year and
Wow.
distribute about 800 million pounds of food a year, most of which is fresh produce, lean protein, dairy, nutritious, shelf-stable foods to help people who are struggling with food insecurity.
Are the two crises powered by the government shutdown driving people into food insecurity, or are they deepening insecurity for those already in need? For example, missing a government paycheck or the gap in SNAP benefits. Do you get a sense that it's the same people being affected, just even more so, or that you're going to be seeing new people?
Both is true. So certainly for people who are already struggling to put food on the table, going without a paycheck, missing a SNAP benefit, that's just going to make that situation worse for them and their family, and that could lead to hunger for that family. But we're also seeing new faces in our lines, people who've never come to a food pantry before, who are, potentially a government worker who has just missed a paycheck. So it's both deepening food insecurity for people already at risk of hunger, but creating a whole new segment of the population that's at risk for food insecurity.
Wow. Do we have a reliable measure of how many people in Texas and in the Hill Country are food insecure?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers specifically for the Hill Country, but I can definitely follow up. But right now, we know that 1 in 6 Texas households faces food insecurity, and that includes about 1 in 5 children. So that's obviously a big share of the population.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about food insecurity and hunger, we really encourage people, even if they haven't experienced it, not to think about it as something that happens to someone else, but to think of it as something that could happen to a neighbor, a friend, their own child goes to school with, someone you might be in church with or buying groceries with at the grocery store. It touches every community of the state, and although it's more pronounced for certain populations and geographies, it doesn't leave any county untouched.
So, how easy is it to become food insecure? Because, as you said, you could be one paycheck away.
Yeah, I think this federal shutdown and what prior shutdowns have shown us is that too many Texans and too many Americans are just one paycheck away from not being able to pay rent or put food on the table. And so I think it's very easy to be completely food secure 1 month and not worried about whether you're going to afford food, and then find yourself food insecure the next month. And for people who are living on lower wages and in less stable jobs with less certain wages, it's that much more likely that they are going to experience bouts of food insecurity. One of the things we know from the research is that even for people who aren't sort of chronically food insecure, who may have, some experience of food insecurity in childhood, that can lead to really lasting consequences into adulthood in terms of lost ability to learn and health problems. And so, when you look at it as a problem, not just facing individuals, but our whole state, it can lead to decreased economic competitiveness and productivity. So it's really a concern we all should share.
So, how are you and your partner food banks preparing for newly insecure members of the community and reassuring the ones who are already dealing with that issue?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we reach every county through a network of thousands of partners. So the good news is that we have the infrastructure, the experience, the partnerships to respond during times like these. Food banks are no strangers to disaster, and they've responded during natural disasters and economic crises and now political crises like this one. So we are doing everything we can to bring in more resources for food. Feeding Texas has set up a government shutdown site on its webpage where people can find out both how to get help, but also to give help. So if you go into our website at feedingtexas.org, you can enter your zip code, you can enter your county, you can find the nearest food bank to you. Then you can see where there's a food distribution located near you, or if you're able to give, you can make a donation at feedingtexas.org. We are really encouraging people who are worried about affording food, who are waking up to find that they have no SNAP benefits on their card, or they've missed a paycheck, to come to feedingtexas.org and know that our food banks are doing everything we can to meet this increased need and help families, help Texans through this crisis.
Are there extra visits from the mobile pantry that you're looking at, or
Yes. So specifically to support some of the federal workers that have been furloughed. So even prior to the SNAP benefits delay being announced, food banks were setting up special distributions, working very closely with federal employers in their service areas to make sure that we could help those federal workers who are going without pay. Most food banks will have a list of those special distributions on their website, as well as just a general list of pantries, their hours of operation, and the kind of food they distribute. Most people just need to bring proof that they live in the area and that they make below the income limits. But generally speaking, it's an easy process, and we try to make it as dignified and easy as possible for people who are, struggling to put food on the table to take advantage of food bank resources.
Well, and dignity is a big part of this, isn't it? What are the primary underlying drivers of food insecurity, and how can you help people understand that and maintain their dignity?
Most, I think, prominent is just simply lack of sufficient resources so people who are working but not earning enough to pay the rent, to pay the bills, to put food on the table, to put gas in the car. Most of the people that we serve are children or seniors or families that are working and simply not earning enough to make ends meet. Some are facing barriers to employment and struggling to find work or keep work. But there is no shame in coming to a food pantry or enrolling in a program like SNAP. These are services that are in place to help people when they're down on their luck, whether that's because they've lost a job or been given fewer hours or gotten sick on the job and not able to work, or it's a natural disaster and they've lost their home, or they're faced with significant home repairs or significant health expense. There's no shame in that, and this is a state of proud people who want to work, but they also are people who want to help each other, and so we encourage everyone to come out and use our services if they need them, and if they don't need them, to support their neighbors in need by donating.
When you look at rural Texas, I know you see the overall picture of Texas, but when you think about looking at rural Texas, are there some issues related to rural Texas that can make it more difficult for them to secure food or secure healthy, nutritious food, whether they're an older person or a child?
So hunger does disproportionately impact people living in rural areas for a number of reasons. One of the issues is sometimes just simply limited access to healthy food or to the healthy food at an affordable price. So there are many communities across Texas that are considered so-called food deserts, where there may not be a grocery store that sells fruits and vegetables or affordable food, and that really can compound the situation when people are food insecure, is having to travel longer distances to get to that grocery store or to pay more for the healthy food. And then I think just generally speaking, there's less infrastructure in rural areas. There's obviously sometimes economic crises, like the job base has left and people are struggling to find work. So transportation, food access, general sort of economic distress, those are all factors that make it more likely that people in rural areas are going to be facing food insecurity. And they often also are some of the people I think most um, or least likely to want to accept help or ask for help. And we really encourage people to not to not be ashamed if they need to ask help and ask for help, and to think of both food banks and the SNAP program as a resource when they're struggling.
Is there one thing that you really wish people would get from this conversation that you and I are having that about for Feeding Texas, or just about what's going on, so that they can get the help that they need?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned it earlier, just that, when we talk about people who come to a food bank for help, we call them our neighbors, because we want folks to understand this isn't something that happens to someone else. It's something that happens to our neighbors. And so Texans are deeply generous people. They believe in the power of community and helping one another. And so I want everyone to understand that if they need help, they should ask for it, and if they can give help, they should give it, so that we can come through this crisis stronger as a community and as a state.
And if there's one question I haven't asked that you wish that I had, what would that be?
Just want to repeat that for people who want to find a local food distribution or help their food bank, to go to feedingtexas.org, and all of that information is there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being on with me.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. This has been Talk About the Hill Country. We're here every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. as a public service to our listeners. If you'd like to become on Talk About the Hill Country, give us a call at 830-997-2197, email us at knafnews@gmail.com, give us a postcard at P.O. Box 311, or stop on by at 304 East San Antonio Street. We're happy to get you on the calendar. This has been Talk About the Hill Country.